China's latest move in the South China Sea just crossed the line. A Chinese surveillance vessel, a full-on military spy ship, was caught operating inside the Philippines' exclusive economic zone. Not near it, not around it, right inside it. The Philippine Coast Guard didn't hesitate. It confronted the ship, forcing it to change course and leave the area. But here's the bigger picture. This isn't just about the Philippines or a single Chinese ship. It's about an increasingly dangerous game of power and control between China and the United States, with more military activity, more standoffs, and more risk than ever before. So the question is, how did we get here? What's really going on in the South China Sea? And is the world sleepwalking into a major conflict? On July 12, 2025, the Philippine Coast Guard tracked a Chinese military ship operating illegally inside its exclusive economic zone, waters extending 200 nautical miles from the coast, where the Philippines has special economic rights. The ship was reportedly a Type 815G electronic surveillance vessel, equipped with advanced radar, communication intercept equipment, and signal intelligence systems. In other words, a floating military-grade listening post. The Philippine authorities confronted the ship and reportedly warned it to leave, citing violations of their maritime sovereignty. After hours of tension, the Chinese vessel finally withdrew. But this wasn't an isolated incident. It's part of a broader pattern. China sending military and Coast Guard ships into disputed waters, and being increasingly bold about it. The United States does not recognize China's claims over the South China Sea, and it backs that position with action. Through regular freedom of navigation operations, the U.S. Navy sails warships directly through waters claimed by China. The message? These are international waters. We won't be pushed out. Over the past few months, the USS Ronald Reagan aircraft carrier and other vessels from the 7th Fleet have conducted joint drills with allies, cruised past Chinese-claimed reefs, and conducted aerial surveillance across the region. Destroyers like the USS Dewey, USS Ralph Johnson, and USS Curtis Wilbur have all been seen operating in and around the disputed sea lanes. U.S. Navy submarines are also likely in the area, though their presence is never officially confirmed. Meanwhile, the U.S. is expanding military access agreements with countries like the Philippines and Australia, creating a stronger network to counterbalance China's influence. While ships make headlines, the U.S. military's real advantage may lie in the sky. Aircraft like the P-8A Poseidon, essentially a militarized Boeing 737 packed with sensors, radar, and anti-submarine gear, patrol the South China Sea daily. These planes can detect ship movements, identify electronic signals, and even drop sonar buoys to hunt submarines. In addition, high-altitude Global Hawk drones provide persistent surveillance, and satellite constellations from both military and commercial sources track ship movements in real time. This is how the US knew exactly what the Chinese spy ship was doing. And it's how they maintain constant situational awareness in one of the most contested regions in the world. The Philippines and the United States are not standing alone. In recent years, a growing coalition of countries has begun to voice support, not just in words, but through joint naval drills, intelligence sharing, and defense agreements. Japan has increased its maritime patrols and even donated coastal radar systems to the Philippines. Australia has joined U.S. forces in exercises near contested waters. India, too, has stepped up its naval presence in the Indo-Pacific as part of the Quad alliance. Even the United Kingdom and France have sent warships through the South China Sea to underline their stance on freedom of navigation. The message is clear. China's expansionist push is drawing a global response. With all this activity, things are getting dangerous. Several near misses have occurred in just the past year. In March, a Chinese destroyer cut across the bow of a U.S. warship, coming within 150 yards, a dangerously close distance at sea. A few months before that, Chinese fighter jets harassed U.S. surveillance aircraft, launching flares and flying within 20 feet. The US has also accused Chinese vessels of using military-grade lasers against American aircraft, temporarily blinding pilots and damaging sensors. And it's not just the US Navy. Chinese ships have used water cannons, ramming tactics, and aggressive maneuvers against Philippine and Vietnamese vessels as well. These aren't accidents. They're calculated, high-stakes games of intimidation, designed to test resolve, draw lines, and assert control. The South China Sea isn't just another body of water. It's one of the most strategically important regions on Earth. Over $3 trillion worth of global trade flows through these waters every year. Some of the busiest shipping lanes in the world pass through it, connecting East Asia to Europe, the Middle East, and the rest of the Pacific. But it's not just about trade. Beneath these waters lie vast reserves of oil and natural gas. Countries like Vietnam, the Philippines, Malaysia, Brunei, and China all claim overlapping parts of the sea. But China's claim is by far the most aggressive. It's based on something called the 9-dash line, a vague boundary that gives China rights over almost 90% of the South China Sea. And here's where it gets serious. International law, specifically the United Nations Convention on the Law of the Sea, does not support China's claim. A 2016 international tribunal ruled in favor of the Philippines, declaring China's claim invalid. But China ignored the ruling. Since then, the region has become a magnet for military tension, surveillance missions, and territorial standoffs. To understand China's strategy, we need to talk about the artificial islands. Over the past decade, China has carried out one of the most ambitious maritime construction projects in modern history, turning uninhabited reefs and shoals into full-fledged islands in the middle of the sea. These aren't just piles of sand. They now have runways long enough for military bombers and fighters, radar and sensor arrays, hangars, fuel storage facilities and barracks, missile launchers, anti-aircraft systems, and even naval ports. China's goal is simple: control the sea by controlling the territory. With artificial islands, China extends its military presence far beyond its natural coastline, giving it the ability to monitor, and potentially deny, access to others, including the US Navy. And once again, the international community has pushed back. These islands have been built in waters also claimed by countries like the Philippines and Vietnam. But China defends them as defensive outposts and insists the territory is historically theirs. So, where is all this heading? On one hand, no one wants a full-scale war. China wants to dominate the region without triggering US retaliation. The US wants to push back without triggering a global crisis. And smaller countries like the Philippines or Vietnam want to assert their rights without getting caught in the crossfire. But the risks are real. As military forces operate in close proximity, the chances of miscalculation increase. One collision, one misinterpreted radar lock, one flare fired too close. That's all it could take. Long term, China seems committed to a slow but steady militarization of the South China Sea, and the US seems equally committed to pushing back, with the Philippines increasing cooperation with the US, and Japan, Australia, and India also showing interest in regional stability. The South China Sea may become the central theater of a new kind of 21st century confrontation, a Cold War at sea with global consequences. The South China Sea might seem far away, a cluster of reefs and islands most of us couldn't name on a map. But make no mistake, what's happening there affects the entire world. From global trade routes to the balance of military power in Asia, this conflict touches everything, and it's not going away. So now we ask you, should the United States take a stronger stand? Should China back down? Or are we headed for an inevitable clash? If this video gave you a new perspective, give it a thumbs up, share it, and subscribe for more in-depth reports on the world's rising hotspots. And tell us in the comments, what do you think is going to happen next in the South China Sea?